Jerry Springer 2.0. The reason why it is such a Jerry Springer show with Ivie, and why it's so disgusting what was going on with Roger, and why the staff there just sucks so much. I'm in the shelter for the first time. Didn't want to go to that shelter. And the reason why I didn't want to go to that shelter is one of their favorites lost custody of his child, then got an apartment. They cleaned him up. They made him look all nice. He lied about what happened to his child. He said that he died in a car accident, and his ex-wife wouldn't let him see the child. Totally song and dance lies. And the staff there, Wendy, John Owens, Jeanette, all of them loved him, was his favorite. Allowed him to come in during the day and wash clothes and clean the showers and, clean. But he was a thief. I know he was a thief because he stole from me. We dated for 3 months. He lied about everything. I got pregnant because he, lied and did something inappropriate. And because even though I'm pro-choice, I wasn't going to have an abortion. So I chose to keep him. We were broken up during the pregnancy. The nonprofits forced me to take him to an ultrasound. He was constantly screaming, I have rights, I'm the father, and I was dealing with the crap. I couldn't let my mom babysit the baby. He needed to be in the child's life. So 2 days after I went to work, he breaks 14 bones on a 6-week-old baby. And you know what? None of them feel sorry. None of them realize the fact that they're not trained. They deal with their own biases. They deal with their own crap. All they care about is making money off of other people's misery. And the reason why I said Ivie 2.0, Ivie purposely got herself pregnant with this guy. He had 7 children. Now he has 2 more on the way. This guy is the staff's favorite. Heather is wearing a keychain that was given to him. They make all kinds of excuses. They say things to Ivie. Oh, he can be a good father, yada, yada, yada. It's disgusting, the lack of training that these people have and how much destruction they have committed against society. I mean, we were watching this family fighting all the time outside. Finally, the father moves in with the kids and the mother, and I hear Jeanette say, oh, you're going to keep the kids straight, you'll keep them on their toes. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's almost like, they're one step short of the behavior that got these people into the shelter in the first place. I mean, Jeanette has made comments about me because I said, I'm so glad to be inside. I'm not really comfortable being around all the people drinking from 10:30 in the morning and on. And she's just like turns into like a high school kid going, ooh, 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 she's ratting you out. She's throwing you guys under the bus. Now, none of the people I had come in with were drinking all day. But that's the mentality of the caseworkers. It's like, are you kidding me? You make comments that justify abusive behavior, and then you make comments about alcoholism. It's not like they're doing anything to help anybody. They're not. And then they say things like they're doing the same program that they've been doing for 30 years. Well, the problem is 30 years ago, excuse me, they weren't so federally funded and had these agreements to do things the right way. Plus, on top of it, back then was shelter in place. It's housing first now. And they don't run it as housing first. They run it as shelter in place. They gather as much money as possible. And going back to Ivie is unbelievable. I had to listen to her call her unborn child every name under the book. And it just, such horrible language to this child who hasn't even been born yet. And they're like, Heather will hear it and go, oh, Ivie, and it's like they downplay it all the time. They're not recommending, parent classes. They're not recommending these people have, drug and alcohol training, because they're drinking all day. All they do is sit there. You spend 30 minutes, either ratting out other people in there or just talking nonsense that have nothing to do. They do no intake to say, get people into HUD or a list of housing or jobs. And the only jobs that seem to be recommended are ones that are going to set you up for failures in their rules. John Owens sets people up for the Macy's packing, seasonal packing, seasonal shipment thing. And then it's funny because it's in Cheshire. If you don't have a car, you're taking public transportation, and you're going to get back to the shelter 5-10 minutes late from curfew. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to get thrown out, even if it's one time late, because you're coming back from working. Half the people who get thrown out for being a minute or two late, it's because of working, because of transportation. And they don't care. They absolutely don't care. They're throwing a woman out who doesn't drink, who's working her ass off because of stupid reasons. And the funny thing is, the job that she got, she had to do a 5-day training. And then they're like, well, we don't know if we can keep your bed. Literally, for her to do a 5-day training for a job that's going to pay her close to $40,000, they were willing to say, okay, fine, sleep on the street if you take this job. That's the behavior. That's the absolute behavior you deal with. But then people like Roger, who's had 7 children and 2 now on the way, so if you do the count, 9, and is begging to get 26 because that's some kind of team that he's doing. And Ivie, who talks so negatively and so horribly about her child, even though she knows there's people who are traumatized, either had their children taken or had their children abused, and she just goes around smiling, happy-go-lucky, and nobody can say a damn thing to her. With her 10 bags and you have 1. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But that's it. That's absolutely it. If you are garbage, if you talk about, the whole street mentality, they love you. If you are struggling and working and doing whatever you can to survive, they will do everything to try and set you up for failure. I mean, they just threw a guy out who was working at the soup kitchen because they lost the funding. And then he asked for $100. Now realize, he's been giving $110 of his own money every week. They have about $5,000 of his money. And they threw him out. Threw him out for asking for $100 of his own money. Just like they threw out the other woman who asked for $10 of her money so she can wash her clothes. And that's what Naj did. These people have absolutely no compassion, no understanding, no training. They talk personal about everybody. I mean, the guys know everybody's story upstairs because they're all gossiping. When someone gets thrown out, they laugh about it, they celebrate it. I can't tell you how many times Wendy celebrated it. The first day I was there, they threw a woman out because she was in the bathroom too long. And when Wendy came upstairs and, got her out of the bathroom, she stood there looking down, not moving. And Wendy said, and I quote, "I'm taking your silence and you standing there as a threat. You're out of here." It was the most ridiculous thing. Everybody walks on eggshells. Everybody wonders, keeps their mouth shut, doesn't do anything, just because they don't want to have something screwed up. It is absolutely terrifying to know you can blink the wrong way and get thrown out of there, which they did. They absolutely do. They don't do anything. They don't do anything. They're all on their phones, gossiping, stealing from the donations. They have their favorites that they'll let go outside and smoke at 4 a.m, which is hilarious because either 4:45 in the afternoon, you could see them loading their car up with donations. You could see them loading their car up with donations at 7 o'clock, at the changer thing. And then you could see them doing it at 4:45 in the afternoon, which is the day I saw Naj putting, soaps and stuff in her car. She took, just like personal shopping, and you can't blame Naj. She's been there 6 months. She's just acting like them. But none of them have any training. None of them give two shits about what they're doing or how they affect society, how they hurt anyone. None of them. And I'm just wondering when Ivie's baby's going to get hurt, because they just set everybody up for failure.